impressive.
Yeah.
You see,
We're all set.
we're live.
We're live?
Did you pick this up
Okay.
at the, on the table there? Okay.
Oh, that shoes. They're really tall. They would fall over wearing them. They're so tall.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if we are ready for this morning's committee meeting, I'd like to open Criminal Justice Committee at 9 a.m. Monday, the 19th of July. We have a quorum with Leggett, Shepler, Stroud, Diamond, and Driscoll. First order of business is to approve the minutes of prior committee meetings. So moved by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Diamond. All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? None. Motion carries. First on the agenda for today, we will do the public defender.
Thank you very
Marcy
much.
Flores, you have the floor.
Thank you. My first request is to fill the position of Damara Fredette. She was the 7th Assistant Public Defender. Her last day was Friday, so I'd just like to fill this position. She is at the entry-level salary on the grid, so it's the lowest salary for a new attorney.
Motion, bring that to the floor.
So moved.
Okay, by Supervisor Shepler, second by Supervisor Driscoll, and discussion. And this is, you said this is brand new. She'll be on the,
Right, it's on the bottom entry-level scale on the pay scale.
okay. Any other discussion? Or none, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2,
Thank you. It's a request for a contract with Office of Indigent Legal Services for the 3rd counsel at first appearance. We have done the 1st counsel at appearance, the 2nd counsel at appearance. So this is a continuation of funding. It's a 3-year contract. We're using it for a salaried position for an attorney. And this one is for, hang on one sec, is for $250,000.
Motion.
Yeah.
Bring it to the floor. Supervisor Diamond, Supervisor Stroud on a second. Discussion. Can you explain what
Sure.
3rd is?
3rd, it's, so the first 2 grants we hired a person with, we're continuing to keep that person working. So this allows that person to work for another 3 years. Because it's all grant funded. The county doesn't pay any of this money. No matching funds.
Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The last one is request for a contract, again, with Indigent Legal Services. This is called the 3rd Upstate Quality Improvement and Case Law Reduction Grant. We had the first one, we had the second one, this is the 3rd one. This is for continuation of services. This is for $300,000. This is for an attorney for 3 years, someone already on staff, so keeping them working, and also for expert fees and for continuing legal education.
Bring it to the floor. Supervisor Diamond, Supervisor Stroud on the second. Discussion. Are you getting your caseloads down to?
Yes, because we're able to hire additional staffing, that keeps it down. So that is, it's working.
And you have a particular target for caseloads?
The Office of Indigent Legal Services has a formula that we have to meet by the end of the 5 years. We are in we have gotten funding for year 3. We're working on funding for year 4. So by the end, we will have those numbers where ILS, where Office of Indigent Legal Services wants it to be.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? None. Motion carries.
Okay, the last discussion items are, we're still moving ahead with 333 Glen Street to put some of my office staff there. So that's the first one. The second one is training. I had Dylan Swartner, my case manager. He received his certificate of addiction recovery coach, which is a big deal for our office because he now has better communication skills and learning skills on how to deal with our clients who have addiction issues. So it's a huge accomplishment for Dylan in our office. And we had a little party for him. We had ice cream for him. We had an ice cream social.
Marcy?
Yep.
So for addiction on your caseloads, are there many people?
Yes, it's a huge issue. And obviously probation and the DA's office is aware of these issues. So by getting clients into treatment facilities and understanding how to talk to them so that we can move forward with their matters to make them become a better person and a better member of society. Because again, my philosophy of my office is to be a holistic office to help all the client, not just his criminal matter, but get him to deal with the issues that they need to deal with so they don't come back again.
Now, that takes money for the individual to go through recovery. Is
Right.
there support out there for individuals?
There is services they can qualify for once they meet the eligibility requirements. So we're all working on getting that done for everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. So that was our Dylan. Then Carlene Barnes went to did a Zoom legal writing clarity a seminar, continuing education. Mary Kate Leahy and myself last week did 2.5 days of drug treatment court training with Judge Hobbs from City Court, because we're refining and redefining the goals of his drug treatment courts. And there was other participants. There was Samantha Mason was there from probation. The DA's office had sent people there, and Bob Fish, the coordinator for the court. So it was a federal program. There was no money spent by the county for this. It was all federal funded. And it was a really good program, and we're revising the contracts and the documents and how we do things. So it was a really, really helpful 3 days through 2.5 day seminar. And that's everything we did. So that's everything on my list.
Did you have a date when you'd be into 333?
We're hoping for September. County attorney's working on that.
Okay. Good. Any questions for the public defender? Brad?
Yes, that ice cream social you had, it wasn't with dairy cream up the road, because, you know, that is addictive.
Yes, I understand. No, it was not. We had to get the ice cream that would stay in the freezer.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank
Just
you.
wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I'll ask Don Lehman, is there anybody from the public with questions for the public defender or our business? Okay. Hearing none.
Can I add one other thing,
Yeah.
which I forgot to say? Thank you for Friday for adjusting the start date on my part-time assistant public defender. Jeff Ferguson started in my office this morning, and he is part-time 3 days a week, and he's going to be doing city court Tuesday and Thursday. He previously worked in the DA's office way back when, and he's been practicing longer than I have. So it is really nice that I appreciate your consideration and allowing me under grant funding to have a part-time attorney, and I appreciate you switching the date so he could start today. So thank you. Okay,
Thank you, Mark.
thank you.
Next up. Who did you decide was next up? Okay. Yep.
All right.
District Attorney
That's right.
Harrison, you have the floor.
Thank you. I've got a great view of the tie here. Let's see what we can do. That's about the best I can do. So I can't help. This is just a discussion item, but it's actually going to take me a little while. So bear with me. And if you have a question along the way, I actually like interruptions. Something that obviously has stood out, because I've been coming up here occasionally or trying to follow what's going along. And I just said to Marcy just a few minutes ago, I said, you know, I envy the grant monies that are flowing into your office through ILS. It's quite remarkable. And it's affording her opportunities to have things like caseload caps. I can tell you that at the DA's office, we do not have caseload caps. We have very heavy caseloads. But I see a benefit to the county in that all that money flowing into one of our many adversaries, the public defender's office, is good for the county because it's money that the county doesn't have to expend on their department. But it doesn't change the system that we're in. The reason I wanted to come up was talk about the impact of discovery. And I guess I'll start with something positive. As we all know, when the criminal justice reforms came through, they did not include any funding at all. So they said, we're doing bail reform and we're doing discovery reform, but the counties aren't getting any assistance. It's just happening. And it did happen. And we spent tremendous resources to prepare for that going into 2020. I think you remember I talked about digitizing all of our files, which was an enormous undertaking. And believe me, it wasn't done on day one, January 1st, 2020. And we're still working on our processes to make them as efficient as we possibly can. The reason I mention that is when the criminal justice reform was happening, a lot of the talk was about bail reform. Everyone was saying bail, bail, bail reform. And I was aware of what that was going to do. And I think anyone that looked at it would see what was going to happen with bail reform. Discovery reform was the thing that I was afraid of. And it wasn't that I was afraid of the fact that there was going to be a change in discovery. I was afraid of having enough resources to actually do the work. It was a complete sea change in the responsibilities of prosecutors in handling files. So I do come with some good news, I suppose. I had previously sought permission to apply, and I hesitate to even use the term apply. DCJS is the Department of Criminal Justice Services. They issued grant awards across the state for counties other than New York City for discovery reform implementation. It wasn't during the year that it happened and we were all living in it, but a year went by. And frankly, the time frame they were looking at is, I think, March 31st, 2020 till March 31st, 2021. So it's all passed. We have not received that money yet, but the application is pending, I believe, or in process is the terminology. Because of the volume of arraignments that our county and our office does, that award is $323,419. So the way that's going to flow in is it's going to flow into the county coffers. It doesn't go into my budget. It goes into the county coffers. It does say in the grant, and I'm going to read from this, please note, given the intent of this important legislation, counties are expected to prioritize funding for their district attorney's office, as well as for local police departments and sheriff's offices, whose average arrests represent a significant number of the proportion of the arraignments in the county. So I think that's one piece of good news. We don't have indigent legal services funding the DA's office. We all know that. And anyone that's been up here, and I'm not up here every time that I'm up here, though, I hear indigent legal services, and it seems to be a great funding source for the county. So that's great for your big criminal justice package. Clearly, it's being applied to the public defender's office. I don't know if that also is an asset for your assigned counsel office. But this is something. And the reason I raise it is because when we came into 2020 and I asked for help, I said, I may be coming back because I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how much work it's going to be, but I know it's going to be a lot. So briefly, when I say discovery, and I think it's just so much harder, we all understand bail. Okay, someone's either going to have bail or not bail. They're going to be free or in custody. That's easy. What is discovery? So before the reforms, we had paper files, and discovery was something that was available on demand of a defense attorney. So if a defense attorney had a case, they couldn't resolve it, they were entitled to file this demand for discovery, and then we would gather together documents and say we have them or we don't, we would provide those documents. I don't want to give percentages, but many cases would resolve pre-discovery. You might meet with an attorney, show them your paper file that you had, they'd look at it, and you'd say, I'm going to make you an offer, and they'd find an agreement and the case would resolve. That was very typical. And so that really minimized work and it was efficient. Then sometimes there would be a demand for discovery and we would do the pre-2020 version, which is completely different than what it is now. And the defense would get that discovery, and then you might conference and they'd say, all right, I'm ready to resolve the case. What can we do? We'd reach an agreement, that case would resolve. Some cases, not most, would go to hearings and then past hearings to jury trials or other trials. That's when a case would get the most complete disclosure by law, the old law. There's something called Rosario. Any note that a person took, any written or recorded event, it's basically everything. For a trial, we're preparing witness lists that we're turning over, things of that nature. It's all encompassing. So 2020, the new law kicked in and it said, essentially, discovery is now that stage of a case. It's the witness list, but it's actually beyond the witness list because it must include contact information for each witness that we provide as prosecutors. It's everything, and I'll explain what that is in a minute. And it's on a time frame. When we started, it was 15 days after arraignment. Then they shifted because they realized how unworkable that was to 20 days for in custody and 35 days for out of custody. But in the other thing that they require now, which wasn't before, we have to run a criminal history on every single witness in every single case. Not every witness we intend to call. Every witness that may have, the statute says, may have relevant information in the case. Failure to comply with the discovery rules and the certificates of compliance can put a prosecutor in jeopardy and can put a case in jeopardy. Failure to reach, and it's a lot to explain, so bear with me, and I'm trying to go quickly with dense information. And so how do we get cases? Well, how do cases come to our office? Well, based on the grant, and the reason we got such a significant number is because we had such a significant caseload of arraignments they did averages from 2017 to 2019. This group, when you think of law enforcement, probably the first thing that comes to mind is the Warren County Sheriff's Office. Well, the Warren County Sheriff's Office was the arresting agency on 39.7% of our cases. So most cases actually don't come from the Sheriff's Office that come to our office. State Police was 33.9%. Glens Falls Police was 26.4%. It's important that this is not traffic. We're only talking criminal cases. This has nothing to do with other responsibilities of the office. So I want you to picture three entities in the air. Warren County Sheriff's, that's a little under 40%. State Police and other, Glens Falls. They're running 365, 7 days a week. Underneath them is a funnel, and it's the DA's office. We have 8 assistants when we're fully staffed, which we're not right now. Into that funnel, it's every single case that they arrest feeds into the funnel. Our new responsibility is this discovery. So we've now got to build every single file almost to a trial level in every case. How do we do that? Well, we shifted everything we had to it. And just so you're all aware, each of those agencies are run by different, so one's a state agency, one's a county agency, one's a city agency. They have different leadership. They use different software. There's different processes in place. Our office created something with the help of others called an FTP site so that they could deliver digital material to our office as rapidly as possible. So that if on a Saturday night they've got material they want to get to our office who's not open Saturday night, they can drop it and get it to us. We made that available to all agencies. Not all of them are using it. Our sheriffs uses it exclusively. It's a great way to get information to us, and we're very happy, and I think they're very happy with that. The state police, because it's a state agency, didn't want to have unique processes in different counties, so there's one process. State police, for us to get their files, we generate a link with a password to individual officers. So when we learn there's an incident and an incident number, we then have to reach out, we have to generate links to them and request that they send us their complete file. Glens Falls uses part of the FTP site, and Glens Falls also has a piece of software called Impact. So my staff is trained on Impact so that we can work in the Impact program and get their files and try to gather everything that they have. So you may think that once we send out the link or we get the FTP site or we go into Impact, we've got everything and we're ready to go. We do not, and we're not ready. That's the beginning. We now have to go through all of those in each case and track every single potential witness in every single case. So if it's a petty larceny or if it's the homicide of some person or it's a rape case, it doesn't matter. Every case you have to do that because we must make those disclosures of that witness list. But let's say we compile the list. We're not ready because you have to run a criminal history on each of those individuals and see, do they have any criminal record? It used to be the defendant's criminal history. Now it's every witness. So we have people on staff, not enough, to run criminal histories. You can't just run them. You have to have gotten clearance. You have to be fingerprinted and you have to go through a clearance process. I'm right now trying to get others in the office to go through that process so we have more available to do that. Once we get that, the file's not ready. The staff has to build that file and categorize. So for example, Glens Falls uses body cams and they have for a while. All that body cam footage we're responsible for gathering and disclosing. That's coming in through our FTP site, and then we can take it, match it up with cases, and file it accordingly to where it goes. State police began, I think they're calling it a pilot program in the Capital District, including Warren, where they're doing body cam. They don't use the FTP. They have contracted with something called evidence.com and Axon. So we had to also form a contract. It's free, but it permits us to now access all of their body cam footage. It comes in a separate way. It doesn't come through the site. We're not ready yet. We have to also, after we've got the criminal histories, all that, I don't know, some of you may be familiar with the term radio log or ComSec. So when police go to places, they'll have a radio and they might say, Officer Smith calling out to Lincoln Ave, and then Officer Smith on scene, Officer Smith calling for backup. Those are radio logs. We're responsible for gathering them in every single case and disclosing them to the defense. Only the state police uses a different thing. It's called ComSec. So, but sometimes the state police will be on the sheriff radio line. So we have to get the radio logs and the ComSec logs for disclosure. And we have to get them appropriately filed. And I know I'm boring you, but I feel it's important you have a handle on what's going on. We're not ready to do a complete disclosure at that point. We have to get the 911 recordings. Where the case has a lab submission, which is a lot. So any case with drugs, latent fingerprints, firearms, DNA evidence, any of that, that goes to another agency. We then have to, using a different piece of software, go into that agency and make requests for our lab reports. They come at different times, obviously, because they're not always done at the onset of a case. Then we gather them. We gather their Rosario material. Part of that is you have to get any of your expert witnesses, any testing that they've done over, I believe it's over the last 10 years. And we have to get all their test results so we can make those disclosures. We have to do what's called Giglio and Brady disclosures. Let's say we got it all and we've gotten through staff and attorneys, we've got it all packaged and ready to go. And we disclose it. I would like to think everyone here thinks we've now done our job and we're in good position. We have not. The new law requires that attorneys issue what's called a certificate of compliance, where they are swearing that they have done their due diligence, that they've obtained the entire file, and that what they're sending is the entire file. So how do we handle all this? When this new law kicked in, we already had all our existing responsibilities and we weren't given more time. But something happened that we were all impacted by, which was COVID. When COVID kicked in, which would have been obviously March 13th stood out to me because that was the last grand jury date I was in until I think July 5th because of the COVID shutdowns. Our traffic courts shut down. A lot of our local courts shut down. A lot of places went to video. So we were doing court over the internet. And so our attorneys weren't running around kind of scrambling all the time, and they were present. And my job, I felt at the time, was to focus them on discovery. So I said, just discovery, discovery, discovery. We'd have meetings, staff, we'd have checkups all through COVID. And we were doing it. And I don't want to say we were treading water, but I can tell you we weren't ahead of it. We were, because it was retroactive, we also had to get all our old cases brought up to speed. It is a tremendous burden. I wish it had been funded appropriately. I wish we had the funding that ILS has been giving to defense, because we've got this tremendous additional burden. So you've got the funnel. It's all funneling in. We're building every single file. Then we're responsible for making the disclosures to defense. So who do we make disclosures to? I had one of the ADAs run the numbers for me last week. I said, can you just tell me, where are these files going? What attorneys are we dealing with? At the time he ran it, which was last week, there was 123 distinct defense attorneys that we were currently engaged in. So we had active cases with. That's a big number, 123. So I said, run it again. And I said, I can't name 123 defense attorneys. But he ran it again, and then we started looking at it. And it's 123 active cases we have right now. Each of those defense attorneys is entitled to discovery in its completeness from our office. This is not counting traffic. This is not counting appeals. That number really stood out to me. Where do they come from? Well, as we know, and I don't know the number of the PD's office, but they may have anywhere from 8 to 11, because I know there's been some additional pieces added. That's one portion of the defense bar that we deal with. Then there's the assigned counsel, which you'd all be familiar with. That's a whole group of the bar, local and beyond, that handle the criminal matters. All of our cases are against them as well. And then all the rest are private attorneys. So when you hear 123 attorneys, that's, obviously a portion is public defender, assigned counsel, and then the private attorneys. To be frank, it seemed unbelievable to me. But then I looked. For example, I have a murder trial scheduled in coming up. The defense attorney's out of Syracuse. He's someone no one here would have heard of. He's got one case with our office. You'd say only one. Well, it's one of our, it's a murder. It's going to be it's been a massive amount of work. I prepared it with another attorney twice for trial. We've been shut down because of COVID both times. Now it's coming again. We have a very severe predatory sexual assault case scheduled for trial. The county has assigned 2 attorneys to that. So our office is going to be up against 2 private attorneys, but they're receiving, it started private and now they're getting paid by the county. This is what we're doing with the discovery. It's going to those locations. We generate links, we send it out. And one of the things that you'll see is then defense has the ability to challenge the discovery and say, it's not good enough. It's not complete enough. You didn't meet your mark. So we're saying your case was never ready for trial and it's in jeopardy of possible dismissal. That's how important these are. And they've created penalties inside the law for failure to fully, meet that discovery responsibility. The reason I feel like that the big group up top, the funnel, and then the bottom where it's all going is so important. We are the supplier of discovery. We are the agency. So as we see the public defender's office grow, or the assigned counsel, or the private, for them to work, they need us to get them all of this material. We're the ones getting them everything. We're the ones putting everything together, tying it with a bow, and sending it out. When I get, for example, when I'm getting medical records in a case, you might say, oh, well, he just got the medical records and he just handed them. No, we're doing subpoenas. We're getting HIPAA releases, which requires us to find someone, explain that to them, get them to sign off. Then with Albany Medical Center, for example, they don't just say, well, thanks very much, we'll fax it. They say we need it hand delivered. So we're hand delivering before they'll speak to us. Once they speak to us, we might realize we need a different person to talk to. It's another subpoena. But once we've got it all together, then it's just a send. I have to add some more, and I should probably, Bob, I'm sorry. When we get those medical records, for example, we can't just turn them over because let's say that I'll pick myself, or I'll pick poor Paulette. Paulette's the victim of a crime. And she signs a HIPAA release, says, I'm willing to give you my records. We get her records. And in there, obviously, there's very private things, but also you'll find oftentimes things like your social security number. And if you've seen medical records, they can be stacks of material. It can be buried. We don't want to just be turning over her social security number to a defendant. And that's essentially what you're doing when you're disclosing. So we have to have people go through all of those, find those kinds of things, try to redact them. Everything's electronic, so it's an electronic redaction so that we're able to make a disclosure. Other things we want to redact for other reasons, for privacy, we have to do what's called a protective order. That's all new since 2020. And we prepare a protective order, and that's an argument in court. And we go before the judge and we argue, here's why we are entitled to this. This person should have protection and privacy. That's argued out. That's another responsibility in that. So now that COVID has loosened up in the courts, our grand jury was down for about 3 months. Our trials were down. We finished, the last trial we finished was People v. David Decker, which concluded, it actually was one of the trials that the state allowed to continue during COVID because it had been going on so long. We had an attorney in that trial for over a month. We've since had a trial and we've got more, they're all stacking up. They're old trials that still need to be tried. So where are these attorneys now that we're doing discovery around the clock? Well, we have county court, and that's nearly every day of the week, plus drug treatment court. We have Glens Falls City Court, Monday's traffic day, Tuesday, Thursday. And then we have Friday specialty courts, drug treatment court, and DV court. Queensbury is our busiest and heaviest caseload. We've got attorneys there every Monday, plus they've been adding what I'm calling bonus COVID days where we send attorneys. And traditionally, they also have a separate traffic court. I'm going to read the following courts: Lake George, Luzerne, Warrensburg, Bolton, Chester, Stony Creek, Thurman, Horicon, Johnsburg, Hague, Cap Court, which we all know is every single day of the week, twice a day. Then we're also doing raise the age arraignments, and we also do special prosecutions. So special prosecutions are when we have a conflict, we contact another county and we say, there's a conflict. Are you willing to accept this assignment for us? And they do. And then in the reverse, they call our agency and it goes through a judge. And so we primarily are doing Washington County, Saratoga County, and some Essex. We've gone as high as Franklin. We've gone as low as Fulton. And so our attorneys, on top of everything I'm describing, also, they'll be like, I got to go to Whitehall Court, or I've got to go to Granville, or I'm going to Clifton Park Court, or I'm going up to Ticonderoga. So they're not just in those courts, they're also in those extra courts. And we always have special prosecution cases. There's never a time that we do not, that in my memory. Right now we're doing, this is a good segue, criminal appeals. Every case that, and these are particularly true of felony cases that you hear, is subject potentially to a criminal appeal. Defendants have a right to a criminal appeal, and they have a right to free counsel. This is not a public defender's office issue, because there's private attorneys and the Office of Rural Law Center. So the Rural Law Center typically is doing the appellate work. That's a separate agency that gets in a defendant a free attorney. And then the private attorneys obviously handle appeals. We have to respond to all of those. And the reason I want to hesitate on this is because when you just say, well, we do appeals, I don't know if that hits anybody. An appeal can be anywhere from 20 to 40 pages of typewritten document that we generate. It has a table of contents, has a table of authorities. It requires certain fonts. We have to create 7 copies. We have to do paper and electric to satisfy the court. And that can take weeks into months of work to get one done properly. The reason I'm segueing to that is because one of the special prosecution trials that I handled with another attorney, we received the appeal on Friday. So we're still assigned to that case, so we'll be doing that appeal. Thankfully, those appeals are argued in Albany. They're all argued in Albany, even if it's the Court of Appeals. What else do we do? And I wrote some things down, and I'm trying to give you the quick version. But some that I felt maybe you don't realize, or you don't maybe have a clear understanding of the time commitments. The care center, not everyone knows what the care center is. And I'm trying to change that. I want to get more attention for that. The care center in Warren Washington County Care Center is on Dix Ave. And that's a place where children who have been abused or the subject of abuse investigation can go to be forensically interviewed. And we have one person, we don't have one dedicated person, but one person will conduct the interview while other agencies that are involved can be present. Why do we want that? So the child doesn't have to be re-interviewed and re-interviewed and re-interviewed. It's very valuable. It's protective of the child. So oftentimes CPS will be there. If there are cases that we're going to be involved in, we're going to be there. Law enforcement, of course, whichever agency will be there. I checked, and just based on my quick review, I had an attorney at the care center 22 times so far this year. And I don't know if that's an up or a down with the COVID protocols. That can be anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. I remember he was there once late into the night because he called me with some questions for follow-up. So that attorney can't do, so when you're doing your appeals, you're not doing discovery. When you're at the care center, you're not doing discovery. When you're at any of those courts, you're not doing discovery. We also have something that's sort of unspoken. We have confidential investigations. Law enforcement will come to us on bigger cases and open confidential investigations through our office. We have the ability and subpoena power through the grand jury to obtain records so that investigations can pursue information to determine if there's criminal activity. Not every confidential investigation we work on is going to turn into a case that anyone's ever going to hear about, but we're working on it. We have something called post-conviction motions. We get those frequently. That is where someone, and sometimes it's pro se, meaning the defendant himself is serving a sentence and they prepare what's called a 440 motion. They say, I want this undone. I was somehow unjustly treated. Think of it as a mini appeal. We have to respond to all of those. We have several right now. SORA hearings, Sex Offender Registration Act. If someone who is a convicted sex offender is being released into our community, our office has the burden of proof on all SORA hearings. We have to prepare all the documentation, and we have to argue what level offender they are, a 1, 2, or a 3. Those are frequent. We have a lot. You can't do discovery when you're doing SORA. We have FOIL. We all know about that. So we haven't gotten to what I think of when you probably think of a DA's office. Grand jury presentations every Friday, which is the gathering of witnesses. With the new discovery laws, it's getting discovery out sooner. You have to get it out 48 hours, certain pieces. prior to grand jury if a defendant wishes to testify. It's getting all those witnesses together, presenting that case so that you can go forward and prosecute the case. Those can go anywhere from, I would say, 2 to 8 hour days. Motions, and that's just the in-court time. That's not the prep. That's not the meeting the witnesses, gathering everything together. Motions, so we have to respond to all the motions that are made in all cases. Hearings, any pretrial hearings. So someone says my statement should be suppressed, or they say the evidence should be suppressed. All those hearings we're responsible for. That's misdemeanor, felony, and then the trials. Obviously, that's your big bread and butter. The felonies are the most time consuming, but any jury trial is time consuming. And those are all cranking up, as you can imagine. What I haven't touched on is traffic. So I think that last I checked, 18 to 19,000 traffic tickets a year are issued in Warren County between Glens Falls, State Police, Sheriff's Office. We're responsible for the prosecution of traffic tickets. Since the advent of the new discovery laws, if someone asks for a trial, we're also responsible for providing discovery. So if the state police pulled someone over and they used their radar and said they were speeding, and now their body cam was running, we have to gather the body cam footage. We also are responsible to get the radar gun certification paperwork and any testing that was done on that document. We have to gather that all together. We have to ship it to the defendant. If it's, say it's just, like I'm going to pick up, say Paulette got a speeding ticket. She says, I want a trial. We've now got to provide that to Paulette 2 weeks in advance. We've got to subpoena witnesses, and then we've got to go do the trials. The other day, I think we had 7 scheduled on one evening, 9 another time. The reason every court, I started with just criminal, has traffic. So when my office goes to court, we are there from beginning to end of criminal and then through traffic. When another, say, defense counsel goes, when their client's case is done, they're done and they leave and they're back to work. We're not that. Every one of those courts you hear, we're going to be there. We're responsible to be there longer than anyone else every single time. So what might be a 1 hour stop in county court for a defense attorney or half an hour, that might be basically a morning and an afternoon for our office. When you conference your 1 case as defense counsel, your 2 cases, we're still there conferencing every other case. Everything I've talked about does not even mention things like returning a phone call, answering an email, or all the regular things. We were able to do it, and we were always, I use the term lean, we were always extremely busy. I'm mentioning this now because discovery is extremely demanding. It's a huge amount of work. And I know this group believes in the system because I see the funding that's going on. I know it's grant money that's going to the public defender's office and elsewhere. So that says to me, you want to see those groups succeed. They cannot succeed if we can't get them the discovery. They can because they can get cases dismissed, not on the proof or not on what's right or wrong, but based on the inability of one office to do all this heavy lifting and do all this work. Those 123 attorneys are all responsible to their clients, and they're not feeling sorry for me or our office. Believe me, that's not their concern. And I'm not feeling sorry for us either. I'm letting you know, and I know we're coming into budget, we have needs, and I feel it's important that you're aware of the demands that are going on right now as a result of this. Yes, Ben.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good. Thanks, Chairman. First, Jason, nice to see your family at last week's Liberty Bell ceremonies.
Good to see you
It was
too.
a good time. I may be the only person in the room that doesn't know the answer to this question, but I'd like to ask you from a manpower perspective, who's responsible in your office for discovery from A to Z? Is it strictly attorneys? Is it non-attorneys? Is it a combination of whoever has the time at the moment in order to get that accomplished? If you could kind of walk me through that process, please.
So it's a combination. The attorneys have to do it because a certificate of compliance must be signed by an assistant district attorney. It can't be, staff isn't permitted to do that. And there's attorney work that needs to go on inside of those files. But we're trying to put as many, my goal is to get them as close as we can with staff. We have 3 staff now that their sole responsibility, other than occasionally answering, things pop up, but essentially their job is, in Monday morning, they come in and whatever's happened over the weekend, they're going to start on. And it's built file building, it's discovery. I want them all cross-trained. Unfortunately, we just lost 2. So we've got 2 very new people. One's been here about a month, one's been here about 3 weeks. And we have the person who was our newest is now our senior, and she's helping with the training. I want them cross-trained. So what that means is one knows impact, one works in the FTP, one works with the state police on theirs, but they need to be able to exchange. If one is on vacation, that you've got 2. They're not the sole people that do it, but they're my primary front line. So when files are coming in, they're in the building process. We've also created a way that as additional, we have to track discovery. So we actually have to prove that we're doing due diligence. So we've created systems to prove that. So let's say that I call investigator so-and-so and say, hey, I still haven't gotten your incident report. I really need it. Would you please send it to me? I will also need to document that. So I have a way that I personally can just go in and document my due diligence that I'm asking. Because when challenged, because defense can challenge that and say, well, they didn't get me everything, I can prove that I've made the efforts. That's I know it's automatic discovery. The law says we're presumed to know everything any police agency in the state of New York has, and that we're presumed to have access to it. But anyone that would like me saying, I presume that Frank, you know what everyone in this room has in their pocket. Of course you don't. It's not reality, but that's the law. So once we get through that initial beginning stage, and oftentimes, we're in a scramble. As anyone that reads the paper could see, we've had some really tragic cases coming in. And I'm in touch over the weekend saying, I need you first thing in the morning. This is a priority. We need to get this case ready. We're going to have to meet this other timeline, this 48-hour timeline for grand jury. And we just start grinding. But that one, like on a big felony, one of those staff people is just working on that with me and others to get it built. We've got to get the search warrant returns. We got to get copies of the search warrant, all the photos, all the video, all the medical records. You can see all the criminal histories. To build a file, it starts with nothing, and now you're building. Then we have attorneys who are going to be in charge of doing the disclosures and the certificates of compliance. Initially, I had 3 and 4 primarily responsible. So Connor, Grant, Lily, and Bob was like an overseer when he wasn't working on motions. Lily took another opportunity, and now sadly, right now, Connor and Grant are in court. Connor and Grant are in court a lot. So it is a all hands on deck, trying to cover, particularly being down an attorney right now, just trying to meet that obligation. So my goal, if we are permitted to get more help, I don't want to have any singular attorney just doing discovery, because I don't think that person would stick around. It is not satisfying work. It's important. So I want them to be able to do discovery and court and have some balance. But right now, it's problematic just as a matter of number of people, number of time. I'm not even talking about things like what didn't happen 2 years ago now. For example, we got a DWI. I said, look, I know you're busy because one of the ADAs had a hearing scheduled, a felony hearing. I said, I'll take a look at it. It had 10 hours of body cam footage. I had it playing in the background while I was trying to work. I got through under 2 hours. You just don't have that kind of time to consume the information. We had an attorney reach out and say, hey, I looked at one of the body cams and I saw the officer took a note and I don't have the note. We reach back out, we call the chief, we say, look, we got to have every note. He says, I know, but people aren't perfect. You know what the note is? So the officer on the body cam, Sue, I'll do it with you. Sue, ma'am, could you tell me your name? Susan Shepler. What's your number? She gives it, writes it down. It's on the video, and now it's a piece of paper, and it's disclosed. So during COVID, all the awfulness of COVID, because of the pauses, we were able to throw a lot into it. That's just not possible anymore. We're pulled. And Marcy mentioned that drug treatment court training. I didn't have people that could go. The judge contacted me, and I had someone fill in for a part of an afternoon and someone fill in for a morning. I wanted to have people there, but we had felony hearings. We had an infant case that was extremely serious, that was under time pressures. We had an appeal due, like there's only so much time to do it all. And that's why I'm raising this now. I know it's not great news, but at least when I raise it, we know there is money coming. It's intended to cover last year's work. We could have passed that mark, that 323,000 without blinking an eye because we'd thrown so much resource into discovery during that year because COVID permitted us to do that. With the opening up and now the backlog of caseload, we're trying 2019 cases. That's our next trials, it looks like, coming up. Long answer.
So, Jason,
Yes.
and Ben, did that answer?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Thank
thanks.
you very much.
As you're looking ahead then, do you have any sketch for filling out your roster to be able to handle demand?
I do, and I'm trying to be conservative, and that's what I was able to do going into this. So I'd rather just take bites at it than launch in and just have some huge expenditure. I certainly, I have plenty of work. If you said, oh, and I'm not expecting this, you said, Jason, I'm going to give you 3 more attorneys. They'd all be busy, but I'm hoping I can get 1 more. And I'm trying to increase responsibility amongst the staff so that they can help us with the discovery portion as much as possible. Anything else?
Any other questions? Brad? Yes,
Well-
McGowan?
I don't sit on the committee, but I have to say, your short version was unbelievable. I am just in awe. And I can see why they want to defund the police so they can stop making arrests and maybe let you catch up. But obviously, you have been saying this, been moving forward. You really kept us post, but you really dropped the bomb today because it's I never realized all this is in, and it's easy for the state to say, oh yeah, we're going to make these changes, and Bob's the same way. You just got to do it.
Well, that's it, and we're doing it, but we're so for example, this morning I came in early because I wanted to think about this, and one of the ADAs who's here usually at 6 or 7 a.m. every day, and I saw her on Saturday when I came in, is working on appeal. She's got 1 due, she's got another due, and then a third. So she's just, and she also covers our SORAs, our drug treatment court felony, and our domestic violence court. And I want to compliment her. She just did a training. She was asked by the New York Prosecutors Training Institute to do a training for the state of New York on some of what she does. She just completed that. Another one of my ADAs who just did a trial was honored and put in the quarterly publication, and they did a podcast and interviewed him about the work he did on a COVID trial. I got a great group of people, but this extra burden just has to be met. It just has to be met. And you can't, I smile when I hear caseload caps. We don't know such a thing in a DA's office. You can't say to a victim, I'm sorry, we've had all of the sexual assaults we can take right now. We're at a cap right now. We're filled up on those. Or if someone, God forbid, gets killed or assaulted tomorrow, we say, well, I've already got 3 of those, and so we're booked. Doesn't work that way, as we all know. It's just, they just keep coming in, and we're responsible for all of those. And I think it's important. I think we live in a county where people have expectations of law enforcement and prosecutors. And I believe in what we're doing, and I just want to make sure we can successfully do it.
Can I follow up? So really what I was trying to get to is, where can we find the grant money like the ALS that comes in? Because there's no problem defending, getting money for the people that need the defense. But I mean, with all these, is there anything out there where the state can see this, is that they're really burdening the counties to a point where who's going to want this job? You're going to burn yourself out, Jason. I'm sorry. I hate to say that on record, but it's scary.
Well, Brad, that's what I gave this presentation to my mom yesterday, and she said, "Oh my God, why do you?" I'm like, "I'm fine, don't worry."
Yeah.
And we are. I'm telling you, we're fine. No, okay. So grants. That's why I want to mention that 323,000. I understand how that grant's written. It just goes into the general fund. It's the way it's written. It says it goes from the expenditures from a certain time, but there's no restriction on how the county uses those funds. ILS is this unique thing, and it's not unique to Warren County. We are seeing it everywhere, and you're hearing things like case caps, something I'd never heard before. You're seeing public defender's office with more attorneys than the DA's office, for example. And the last thing I want to do, I've worked with Marcy as a prosecutor and in defense. This isn't about her agency, but that's why I think it's important to note we have 123 attorneys. Theirs is a percentage of our caseload, and what they do is a percentage of what we're responsible for. As everyone knows, we also hold the burden of proof. Most trials that I do, when I've completed that trial and I've called anywhere from a small trial, maybe 5 witnesses, to a long trial, I think 40 is the most we've had, defense will be 0 or 1 witnesses, occasionally 2 or 3. And that's fine. We hold the burden of proof on hearings, on trials, on SORA hearings. So we have to go forward in grand jury. So it is a big thing to cover. It is a lot to cover. Unfortunately, so the benefit of having some court slowdown and court shutdown is we were able to do a lot of discovery work. The downside is now that everything's reopening, courts are adding additional days and trials. So it's easy to say trials, but when I say trials, you may be talking in courtroom 2, 3, 4 weeks, 1 or 2 attorneys. Often on the big ones, you're going to want 2 because we have the burden. If I'm in trial for 2 weeks, I'm out of trial working around the clock for, I've heard as much as 10 hours for every one in the courtroom, 10 hours outside of the courtroom. That's not my own study, but you got to prepare every witness. You've got to go through all of if they took a body cam, they need to see it again and talk about it. So it's just a massive time commitment. We're about to hit that really heavy work. And not every trial, I'll give you an example. I mentioned I had this, it's now a murder trial that I had prepared. I prepared it I was ready to go. It was Friday. And that's when in November, I want to say mid-November, when I got the call from the state, we're shutting down. The trial was starting Monday. I had just spent 6 weeks preparing and it stopped. And I guess if you, on an outsider, wouldn't know that anything had happened because the trial didn't ultimately go forward. And you're not now, whenever that trial starts again, I don't start with all that 6 weeks in my head ready to go. It'd be like if you asked me 6 months from now to just give this presentation again off the top of my head and do it well. I wouldn't. So we got to re-prepare those. So there's a tremendous amount of preparation to be successful and to do justice to those files, to those victims, and in those cases.
Jason?
Yes.
If I may, we have a question here by the chairwoman, and also being mindful of time, but
Yes.
Appreciate all the background on this, and it does impress upon us the load that your office has on it. Rachel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, I think the information District Attorney Carasone, I think the information that you are sharing is so important to our community. And I would ask that this committee please consider a referral to government operations and advocacy so that we can lobby appropriately to our state partners to make them more aware of the impact that it's having here in Warren County, but also to ask for additional funding and recognition from the state. This is clearly a problem. The more and more we talk about national crisis in the criminal justice and public safety arena, I think the more and more our county needs to be aware that we have to do more to advocate on your behalf and everything that's impacting you. It's also impacting our sheriff's office, our probation department, DSS, and many other entities. And if this committee would consider that, I think some additional time should be spent so that we can have more of a dialogue, and then also ask our state representatives to fight for Warren County and resources that need to be allocated here.
I agree. And I think this is not unique, as you just said, to Warren County. This is across the state. I mean, this burden didn't just drop on our office. It's all DA's offices, all law enforcement. And I know as a member of the District Attorneys Association for the state, there's been strong push, strong advocacy. We're not obviously making a lot of headway. But I am told that money that in our case, because of our volume, we get a nice number, 323. That is really asset forfeiture money that was seized by the Manhattan DA's office that they have given. This isn't state money. This is a DA's office that obviously seized a lot of money. I think it was involved in, I don't want to be wrong, but a Bernie Madoff type of seizures, but I don't think that's the case. And that money was now distributed to the counties, or is in the process of being distributed. So it's really another DA's office trying to help fund this a little bit. It's not necessarily the state dollars, as I understand it.
Any other questions for Jason, for the district attorney? Hearing none, for the sake of time, we'll call it a close, but thank you very much for that presentation. I think that gave us a good scope on what your office covers, and as we head into budget season as well, things for us to consider.
Could I just add, I want District Attorney and your staff, you are so appreciated. We know how hard you work. We know that it's very difficult conditions. You put in all kinds of extra hours, and it's one of the most important services our county provides in terms of what it means to crime victims. We're very appreciative and we support you.
I know that I felt that support. I appreciate it. And I tend to, I don't want to say keep to myself, but I did feel it was important that we talk about it a little bit and you hear what's going on, because I'm living it every day and I'm seeing, people are saying, hey, can I take this day off? And we're trying to figure out how do we get everything covered. And it's been a bit of a struggle.
It's a whole lot to ask of your people, but it's not unnoticed.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Bob. I'm so sorry that went long.
And Jason, one last thing before you step away, is it the people? Is that how the DA's office often shows up in court as such? You represent the people.
The people of the state of New York is how it's addressed. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for taking care of us.
All right. Thank you.
Bob? Yeah. We will now transfer into probation. Director, you see you have the floor.
Thank you. We have quite a bit on the agenda, but I can move through it relatively quickly. I will start with the first one. We have a request to fill a vacant probation assistant position due to a retirement that occurred on March 25th of 21. I waited till now because we are in the process of giving a civil service test was given at the end of June. Results won't come back until September. So I would look for permission to fill that position.
Move to bring to the floor. Supervisor Shepler and second by Supervisor Stroud. Any discussion? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The second one I have is actually 2 and 3 will go together. I have another retirement coming. It's a senior probation officer who is retiring at the end of this month. So I would like to fill that position. A senior title in our department brings about an additional $2,500 a year. So I would like to appoint somebody from within. We do have a current list that we will be looking at once Mr. Murray retires at the end of July.
Motion bring it to the floor. Supervisor Stroud, second by Supervisor Shepler. Any discussion? You expect the test to be done, you'll have a list soon enough?
That was given, we do have a list currently for senior probation officers. And once we promote, we will look to, once we hire, we'll look to promote. So we should do that right around the end of September.
End of September. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Let's vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
And the third one is, once we promote the senior probation officer, we will be promoting an existing staff member. So that will bring a fresh position to our department to fill. And those are probation officer trainee positions. So I would look for permission to fill that. Again, we gave a test at the end of June and results should be coming out sometime in September.
Okay, motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Shepler, second by Supervisor Stroud. Discussion. Hearing none. Let's go for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? None. Motion carries.
And the next series of resolutions I have to do with a grant that we were awarded. It's called the Y Reconnects Grant. It was for $35,000 a year for 3 years. Funding starts April 1st of this year. First year goes from April 1 to March 31 of 22. And with that $35,000, we have a series of people we'd like to contract with and organizations to help us with respect to the grant. The first one is under request number 4. It's for the White House, Maureen Buckley, Michelle Treffy, and Jameson Bouchard to be what's called reentry ambassadors for $2,710 for the time period of April 1 through March 31 of 22. And reentry ambassadors are people with experience in the system. And with that experience, they're able to bring things to the table that us who work in probation and other government agencies don't have.
We'll take them one at a time. Bring it to the floor. Move by Supervisor Driscoll, second by Supervisor Stroud. Discussion, Supervisor Stroud.
Yeah, why can't we bring 4, 5, and 6 to all
I think we could.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay. So would you like to discuss 5 and 6 while we're at it here?
Sure. And number 5 also has to do, as we indicated, with the grant, and that is to enter into a contract with Mediation Matters for $15,000 to do restorative justice, community circle training for people involved in the system, law enforcement, members of our group, and affiliated service members. And number 6 has to do with contracting with Cornell Cooperative Extension. They're going to be an parent ambassador, and what they're going to do is bring needed parenting services to the county into this grant. So those are the ones that have to do, and we have one more. I'm sorry. Number 7 is to enter into a contract with Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Again, they've been a great addition to the things we've done. The mentoring services they provide are fantastic, and they will be a part of this grant. So those are the ones that are contained in this particular grant.
So to amend the motion and bring it to the floor, we'll bring up all 4, 5, 6, and 7 instead of, is that both? Okay. Any discussion on those items? These have all gone through proper purchasing and procurement process and all. We're set to go. And the attorney's office has what it needs.
If they don't, we will give them whatever they need, but we provided them something.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? None. Motion carries for 4, 5, 6, and 7.
And number 8 is also a agreement for progressive parenting, but this is funded through STSJP, which is a funding source we get from OCFS. I will note that this is additional funding that came to us at our department because of our probation supervisor, Amy Secor, and her efforts to advocate to the state that they divvy out unused money for this particular funding stream, which they did, and we got a little bit extra. So with that, we'd like to contract with progressive parenting. Again, parenting, we've lacked services regarding parenting services, but we're picking up and we're bringing that to the table. So this is another piece of that.
Who'd like to bring it to the floor? Okay, Supervisor Stroud, second by Supervisor Diamond. Discussion. Bob, parenting seems to be a big role in a lot of your work here. So is that what you're trying to bolster? Is that family environment?
Absolutely. What we found through the years is we've had a lack of parenting, and through the efforts of different groups, juvenile office, particularly Amy, we've advocated for services to provide parenting programs, not just your basic 4-hour parenting program, but a series of things that hopefully gives these individuals skills within family setting. And by doing that, we build better families, and we don't have people coming into our office. Hopefully.
Good luck with that
Thank you.
all. Yeah. Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
And before I turn it over to Amy, I would like to address the issue under referrals. has to do with body armor. At our last meeting, I brought up the point of we put in for body armor. Ours is expired. They're on a 5-year life shelf. We put it in last year's budget. It was taken out understandably due to some of the uncertainty around the budget. So I'm advocating to put that back in and have it purchased this year. I was tasked with, from Supervisor Diamond, of indicating, do we have money in our existing budget that could fund it? We've looked through our budget. We could contribute another $3,000. We could contribute $3,000 of money we have in this year's budget towards that figure.
And you needed how much altogether?
We need a little under 12,000. It would be 11,430. These would be to replace the body armor for 14 individuals in our department, and that'll last 5 years. And what I also did on the suggestion of Supervisor Leggett was to provide a budget performance report of 2020 of how we spent our money. I think we've always attempted to be judicious and just not spend money because we had it. And if you look through it, I think you could see that that in many lines, we did not spend everything that was allocated to us. So we contributed a little bit back.
That's something for us all to be mindful of, and helps in the decision-making and where to direct the resources. Do you need any action on the body armor at this time?
I believe what we would need, if the committee agrees, we would move it forward to put the additional money towards the budget to purchase it.
And is that the 3K or going for the full 12?
We can contribute 3, so we would need a little under 9,000. I can get the exact figure.
Would this be for the 2022 budget, or are you talking the 2021?
I think we should do it in 2021.
In 2021.
What's the feeling of the committee for going forward with body armor for this year? And this would, I guess we would need a resolution proposal at next month. Would that be the right thing, or can we just do an off the cuff?
Committee's pleasure, it would say.
Yeah. Supervisor Stroud.
I support the concept, but I think we need more detail. Where are we going to take it from the general fund, or where are we going to get the money?
Exactly. We always need a source. So. And usually it would come from a contingency. Sometimes we use fund balance, but maybe not for that small of an item this year. Something like that. Yeah, Supervisor Shepler.
Thank you. I would like to support this and going forward, and I would like to see that we start an investigation to find out where the funds can come from to do this. I mean, it's personal body armor. It's very important to these people to have this.
Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob, I did mention up before, and we do have our sheriff with us. Are you placing a large order too for yourself? I'm sure yours get outdated too. You know, maybe they could tag on and we can get a little savings. And just a question. I think we need to protect our probation as long as our officers do. But
Probation Director used to reach out to me. We had a lengthy conversation about the importance of body armor for his members as well as our officers. And I don't believe that there'd be any financial gain or benefit by the order. Ours expired similar 5 years, and we replaced. We don't use full body armor. I know we purchased 4 just recently. We had a discussion and we couldn't come up with that.
well, I thank you for trying. But like I said, I do believe that we need to protect, and I have no problem and a full board standing behind this. So thank you.
Supervisor Thomas.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was budgeted for 2020 and it was removed because of circumstances. So my opinion is we should take care of it now and it should come out of the fund balance. So that's where it went.
And in light of our revenues that we're bringing in this year, that would be acceptable. Okay. That's Supervisor Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to agree with Supervisor Thomas. I think that's something that we can address now and just take the money out of the fund balance, move this forward.
Okay. And the feeling from the other supervisors? Okay. How shall we make a motion to move this forward? What's the
This is
recommendation?
going to be a referral to finance for a fund balance appropriation.
Okay. So motion to move to, so moved by Supervisor Strauss, second by Supervisor Shepler. We clear on what we're doing here?
The referral, correct?
It's a referral to finance to cover a balance of approximately $9,000.
It's fine.
Will that do it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And I'm sorry.
Call the question unless you want to speak to the motion.
No, sir.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I will turn it over to Probation Supervisor Secor, who I described as the hardest working person in business, and she's continues to live up to it. So,
Amy? Amy, welcome. You have the floor.
Thank you for letting me speak today. My assumption from Bob is that you guys would like me to talk a little bit about detention services for juvenile delinquents, juvenile offenders, and those raise the age cases, adolescent offenders. I provided a list of all the specialized secure detention beds in the state of New York, as well as the secure and non-secure detention beds that are listed. This list gets shorter and shorter every time I go to look at it because they close detentions left and right. And most of these facilities that are listed are not available. What we found in our experience is we rarely ask for detention of any kind. However, we do get those very serious raise the age cases of felony weapons or felony assault or even rape cases where we have placed a youth on release under supervision and they have violated that situation. And therefore, we need to protect the community and put them in detention services. Our last very serious case, that was the incident. And thankfully, Director UC was able to access some of his, oops, I'm not a teacher, some of his affiliates who were able to get our youth into the Woodfield adolescent facility. For the most part, we haven't been unable to access detention when we really did need it. And that's why Director UC was looking for electronic monitoring, because that is some alternative to detention that is accepted in the juvenile adolescent youth park court, as well as family court. We have access to, on the OCFS website, a list of facilities that say they're open. Typically, when they say they're open, they're actually beds that have already been contracted out. So those facilities have to keep those beds open for that agency, and that's not available to us. We occasionally find facilities that are open out in Erie County. Judges do not like to have youth that far away from their families in detention, and we certainly do not want to burden the sheriff's department with transport all the way out to Erie County one day to the next. Those beds are also tentative day to day. So if that facility is contracted with another agency and that agency needs that bed, then our use gets pushed, even if there's a detention order. It's pretty much a crisis for all departments because there are not enough detention beds in New York State for the youth that need them.
And why I asked to bring up this report, this was a very big issue with the raise the age, and as things have shifted through the years, and there was a big discussion countywide. Do we need to build a facility to handle these? And we did a wait and see on it. So what's the prognosis for the future? How do you think beds and the call for beds will be met?
I've asked the state. I know that Director UC has asked the state. And there really isn't a plan that we know of statewide to build facilities or to add on to facilities. It has become a burden to most probation departments in trying to access appropriate detention beds. And I don't know if there is a plan within the state to build.
And to be clear, that we cannot use our county jail for this purpose. Is that correct?
That is correct. I was made aware that in certain cases of potential designated felonies where there's murder, attempted murder, very serious crime, you can ask for permission as long as the local sheriff's department has the appropriate facility to be approved. However, that is a long, detailed process, and it's not an immediate fix, and it's also very difficult to get that approval. So it wouldn't be something that you could access, you know, if you had a murder case at midnight. You would have to wait until you were able to get somebody from the Office of Children and Family Services that was pretty high up to be able to get permission for that.
So you'll keep us posted as the landscape changes out there for all this?
We will. We tread water on those. Fortunately, we have not had a lot of instances, but
And the electronic monitoring, you think will cover a lot of call for this?
I think it gives us options.
Okay.
Better than nothing.
Any questions? Yes.
Just a quick one.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is the difference between a jail and a detention center? I mean, short term, I mean, is it kind of the same thing? It's just you have to keep a lower age group together, or?
There's actually a huge difference. And the detention centers are run by the Office of Children and Family Services, and therefore there are specific regulations. Dorms have to be so far apart. Offenders can't be with each other at certain times. They have to have a very small staff to youth ratio, where makes a very different situation than a regular jail. They also have to provide education services, mental health services, trauma-informed care, and various other criteria related to children's needs. So it's very different and probably more intense as far as services for juveniles.
And I'll look that up, but thank you. I'm just, just trying to get a feel on it.
I can provide, we have a bunch of race age documentation that lays out all of the regulations of an OCFS detention facility, so I can provide that to you.
Thank you.
Amy, you want to talk now about the other services you have here? You had girls service circles under discussion items.
Yes, so I gave you a list. I provided a list of all the services that we are currently offering. Our juvenile unit is very proud of what we're able to do. And thank you, Director UC, for allowing us to do that. We've worked very hard to make sure that our youth get the services that they require based upon their risks and needs. I did want to update since last time I was here. Girls Circle, over the summer, since our caseload was a little down in the juvenile unit, I trained all 3 of my female officers to be facilitators in the Girls Circle curriculum. What we've done with that is we've offered those probation officers who are stationed at various schools within Warren County to offer those programs within the schools. We, because of COVID, were unable to do that, but we did schedule to meet with Glens Falls School District to offer Girls Circle with them in Glens Falls Middle School. So we're looking forward to that. I also know that since we last spoke about Girls Circle, Queensbury School had implemented a program within their school district on their own. And Department of Social Services just recently was able to get one of their preventive senior officers trained as a facilitator, and hopefully we'll be able to utilize the curriculum that we have purchased from Raise the Age to offer it to their foster care and preventive youth. We opened up Girls Circle not just to youth on probation, but to other services, mental health, DSS, and other agencies who may have youth that want to participate. We offer about 2 programs a year, sometimes 3. They last anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, and they've been fairly successful. So we're happy to be doing that. It's an alternative to the regular humdrum of just meeting with your probation officer. The other thing that we do is we have been able to get one of our male officers trained in the Counsel for Young Men and Boys, and that has taken off really well. We offer that program about 2 times a year as well, and it's about 6 to 8 weeks, and it's for young males who are involved in the criminal justice system through probation. And that actually, we've had more participants in that program than we have had in Girls Circle. So that's really taken off. We would like to be able to offer that in the schools. However, we just have 1 male officer trained.
And that too is a group program.
Yep, evidence-based, it's under the same One Circle curriculum as Girls Circle. So.
Questions? That, anything else you'd like to add?
Nope, just that those are the rest of our services. If anybody has any questions, you're welcome to contact us.
It's quite a list. Yeah. Thank you, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for doing
Thank
that.
you, Amy. Bob.
Yeah.
Thanks for your patience.
Appreciate it. Have a good day. Looks like that takes care of our Criminal Justice Committee meeting. Is there any other items that should come before us? Yes, Supervisor Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to the district attorney's agenda, and I'd like to ask during his discussion on the impact of discovery reform that maybe we send a referral to the government ops to see if they can get some letters of support or some ideas and direction to where maybe there'll be some funding to help him, help us, the county. It sounds like that he'll be requesting some additional monies through the budget process because of his workload. So I'd like to ask us to refer that to that committee.
Okay.
Maybe they can send a letter of support. Or
I'll take that as a motion. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Shepler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move that referral over to government ops. Thank you, Supervisor Diamond. Any public comment before we close? Don?
We do not have anything on YouTube at this point, no.
Okay, thank you. And if there's nothing more from the committee, motion to adjourn. Supervisor Strauss, second by Supervisor Diamond, all in favor?
Aye.